The stars had never seemed more silent than they did in the year 2475. From the observation deck of Station 42 orbiting Uranus, in the outer reaches of humanity's solar empire, Officer Dan Miller adjusted his headset and stared at the endless void beyond. The monitoring arrays stretched across the system like a vast neural network, each station a node in humanity's ear, pressed against the cosmic dark, listening for whispers from the unknown. "Anything interesting today?" Maya Lin asked, floating over from her workstation with the practiced ease of someone who'd spent years in zero gravity. Her fingers danced across holographic displays showing gravitational wave patterns, electromagnetic signatures, and quantum fluctuations from across local space. Dan shook his head, suppressing a yawn. "Just the usual background radiation and solar wind data. Though," he paused, frowning at a particular readout. "There's something odd here. Maya, take a look at this." The signal was unlike anything they'd seen before. Mathematical in nature, precise to the point of artificiality, yet desperately urgent. It pulsed in prime number sequences, then shifted to Fibonacci spirals, before settling into something that made both officers' blood run cold, the universal mathematical distress signal recognized by every spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy. "How far out?" Maya whispered. Dan ran the calculations twice, then a third time. 85 light-years, Alpha 7 system." His voice cracked slightly. "Maya, this signal. It's not just asking for help. It's screaming. 85 light-years away, on the bridge of the ISV Nemesis II. Colonel Elena Reyes stood before the vast view screen, showing the majesty of the Horsehead Nebula. The flagship of the Orion Exploration Fleet was 3 days from completing a routine patrol of the outer territories, and Elena found herself looking forward to the simple pleasure of Earth's gravity beneath her feet again. She was a woman sculpted by years of military service and space command. Her auburn hair kept regulation short, her green eyes sharp, with the kind of intelligence that had earned her command of humanity's most advanced battle group at the age of 42. The Nemesis II was a testament to human engineering, 2 kilometers of sleek metal and advanced technology capable of folding space-time itself through the revolutionary Hawking drive system. Colonel, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Vance approached with a datapad, her expression troubled. "Priority transmission from Sol Command. It's coded Priority Alpha." Elena took the pad, her fingers automatically entering her command codes. What she read made her stomach drop. The mathematical distress signal, the impossible distance, the implications. She read it again, then handed it back to Vance. "Prep for immediate jump to Sol. Maximum burn. I need to speak with the Council." The journey back to Earth took 18 hours precious time, during which Elena found herself pacing the corridors of the Nemesis II like a caged predator. The crew could sense their commander's tension. Whispered conversations died as she passed, and even the ship's AI seemed to speak in more subdued tones. Earth appeared in the view screen like a blue-white jewel against the starfield, still beautiful, despite the orbital infrastructure that now ringed it like metallic ribbons. The space elevators gleamed in the sunlight, carrying cargo and personnel between the surface and the massive stations that served as humanity's gateways to the greater galaxy. In the council chambers beneath Lake Geneva, Elena faced the most powerful people in human space. The room was circular, with holographic displays showing the current state of the solar system's defenses. Representatives from Mars, Europa, Titan, and a dozen other worlds sat in a semicircle, their faces grave. Senator Arjun Patel of Mars leaned forward, his weathered face set in hard lines. "Colonel Reyes, I've reviewed the data from Station 42. An interesting discovery, certainly, but hardly our concern. We have commitments here in Sol system that cannot be ignored." Defense Minister Selena Novak from Earth's government shook her head, her silver hair catching the chamber's lights. "Senator Patel, with respect, we cannot simply ignore a distress call from a sentient species. The mathematical nature of the signal proves intelligence, possibly a civilization in mortal danger." "Exactly," Elena interjected, stepping forward. Ministers, senators, we have confirmation of not just intelligence, but intelligence under threat. The signal patterns suggest a coordinated attack on population centers. An entire world is crying out for help. Patel's voice rose. At 85 light-years distance, Colonel. Do you understand what you're suggesting? Deploying the Orion fleet beyond our borders into completely unknown space, based on a radio signal. Mathematical signal, Elena corrected. And yes, Senator, I understand perfectly what I'm suggesting. It's what we would want someone to do for us. Minister Novak activated a holographic display showing the Orion fleet's current disposition. 20 battleships, 10 support vessels, 12,000 of our finest Marines. Colonel Reyes, if we approve this mission, you would be taking a significant portion of our deep space capability into the unknown. The risks of ignoring a genocide in progress are far greater, Elena replied. Ministers, senators, we call ourselves the defenders of human space. Shouldn't that extend to the defense of any sentient life that asks for our protection? The debate continued for hours. Voices rose and fell, accusations flew, and political alliances shifted like sand. Elena found herself thinking of her sister Maria, lost in the Titan uprising 20 years ago, and how desperately she had wished for someone to answer their distress calls. Finally, after what felt like eternity, President Chen of the Earth Council called for a vote. The tally was close, painfully close, but when the final count was taken, the motion passed by a single vote. Colonel Reyes, the president said solemnly, you have your authorization, God help us all. Preparation for the mission took 3 weeks. Elena threw herself into the task with the focused intensity that had made her one of humanity's most successful commanders. The Orion Fleet base at Ceres hummed with activity as 24 vessels prepared for the longest jump in human history. The battleships were marvels of engineering. The Nemesis II served as flagship, but she was joined by vessels like the Thor's Hammer, the Valkyrie, and the Prometheus. Each ship carried enough firepower to level continents and enough armor to withstand the heart of a star. The support vessels Hercules Atlas and 8 others carried everything from medical facilities to manufacturing capabilities. Captain Kaido Tanaka, commander of the elite 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, found Elena in the ship's war room 3 days before departure. He was a compact man with prematurely gray hair and scars on his hands that spoke of a soldier's life. Their friendship went back 15 years to the siege of Europa Station. Elena, he said without preamble, half the crew thinks this is a fool's errand. The other half thinks it's glorious suicide. What do you think? Elena looked up from the tactical displays, showing the ARFA system's sparse data. I think, Kaido, that we're about to find out if humanity has learned anything in the past 500 years about being something more than just another predator species. And if we haven't, then at least we'll have tried. The Hawking Drive was humanity's greatest achievement and its most terrible weapon. By folding space-time itself, ships could traverse vast distances in mere moments. But the technology was barely understood, temperamental, and dangerous. Ships had been lost in the folded space between stars, trapped in dimensions that human minds couldn't comprehend. Elena stood on the bridge of the Nemesis II as the fleet prepared for jump. Through the view screen, she could see the other ships of the fleet, their Hawking drive cores beginning to glow with an eerie blue light that seemed to bend reality around it. All ships report ready for jump, Colonel, reported Lieutenant Commander Vance. Hawking drive at 95% and climbing. Open fleet communication, Elena ordered. The faces of 23 other captains appeared on screens around the bridge, each one showing the same mixture of determination and nervous energy. Captains. Elena began her voice carrying across space to 12,000 souls. Today, we embark on a journey unlike any in human history. We go not as conquerors, but as guardians. We carry with us the hopes of Earth-Mars and every world that calls humanity home. Remember this moment, for our actions in the coming days will determine what kind of species we truly are. She paused, looking out at the stars that had called to humanity since it first looked up from the savannas of Africa. All ships initiate jump sequence. May God watch over us in the void between worlds. Hawking drive at 100%, Vance reported. Space-time fold initiating in 3, 2, 1. Reality twisted. Elena felt her consciousness stretched across impossible dimensions as the universe collapsed and expanded around them. For a moment that lasted eternity, she existed in a space between spaces, where the laws of physics became mere suggestions, and the boundary between matter and energy dissolved. Then, with a sensation like falling from infinite height, the fleet emerged into normal space. The journey to Alpha 7 took 3 months of real-time, though subjective time in the folded space was impossible to measure. The crew of the Nemesis II established routines to maintain sanity and readiness. Training exercises became near religious rituals. Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, the fleet's chief xenobiologist, led seminars on potential alien contact protocols. Marines practiced boarding operations and urban combat in the ship's holographic training decks. Elena found herself spending long hours in observation, reviewing everything humanity knew about warfare diplomacy and first contact. She studied the mathematical signals from Alpha 7, trying to understand the species that had sent them. The signals had included what appeared to be a crude star map, showing the positions of worlds in their system, and basic mathematical constants that suggested a scientific civilization. But 2 months into the journey, the signal stopped. "I don't like this," Kaito said, joining Elena in her ready room. The walls displayed real-time telemetry from the fleet and their best guesses about the Alpha system. 3 weeks of silence. Either they solved their problem, or they lost the capability to transmit, Elena finished. Which means we may be flying into a charnel house. Or a trap. Elena nodded grimly. It's possible. But Kaito, if there's even a chance that people are alive down there, we have to take that risk. It's what separates us from the monsters. On day 73 of the journey, long-range sensors detected the Alpha system. What they found defied their worst fears. The system was a battlefield. Debris fields stretched between planets, the scattered remains of what must have been a sizable space-going civilization. Energy signatures suggested recent combat, massive explosions, and something else that made Elena's blood run cold. Ships were still there. "Colonel, Lieutenant Commander Vance called from the sensor station. I'm detecting approximately 50 contacts in the system. Configuration unknown, but they're big. Really big." Elena studied the readouts. The ships were massive, some nearly 4 kilometers long, with design aesthetics, unlike anything in human databases. They moved in predatory formations around Alpha 7, a rust-red planet that had once been blue, according to spectral analysis. "Can we determine if they're hostile?" "Colonel," Dr. Hayes interjected from the science station. "I'm reading massive biosphere depletion on Alpha 7. The planet's lost approximately 60% of its atmospheric oxygen in the past 8 weeks. That's not natural climate change. That's extermination," Elena whispered. The magnitude of what they were witnessing hit her like a physical blow. An entire world dying, its inhabitants being methodically slaughtered by an unknown enemy. "Colonel," Vance continued, "the unknown contacts have consistent design elements. Organic curves, high energy signatures, and... Colonel, they're moving toward us. They've detected our emergence signature." Elena felt the familiar calm of command settle over her. This was the moment everything had led to. "Battle stations. All hands to battle stations. Signal the fleet, prepare for combat. Lieutenant Commander Vance, patch me through to all ships." The bridge lights dimmed to combat efficiency as the crew moved with practiced precision. Elena stood before the main screen, watching as 47 alien vessels turned toward the Orion fleet, like a pack of predators scenting prey. "Captains," she said into the fleet communication system, "we are looking at the aftermath of genocide. 47 hostile vessels of unknown capability are approaching our position. They are responsible for the destruction of a planetary civilization. I am authorizing Protocol Omega. A collective intake of breath across the fleet. Protocol Omega was humanity's deepest secret, its darkest weapon. Developed during the Solar Civil War but never deployed, it represented the absolute pinnacle of human military engineering, concentrated singularity weapons that could tear apart spacetime itself. All ships prepare singularity torpedoes. Target the lead formation. On my mark, fire. 24 streams of impossibly dark projectiles lanced through space. Each torpedo contained a miniature black hole, stabilized by exotic matter and guided by quantum entanglement. Where they struck, reality simply ceased. The lead formation of alien ships vanished in flashes of brilliant light as their matter was crushed into singularities before dissipating into Hawking radiation. 16 vessels simply ceased to exist. But the remaining aliens didn't flee, they accelerated. "My God," Dr. Hayes breathed. "Colonel, I'm reading massive energy buildup from the remaining hostiles. They're charging some kind of weapon system." The alien ships were unlike anything in human experience. Organic in appearance but clearly technological, they moved with disturbing grace through space. As they closed distance, their hulls began to glow with an ominous red light. "How long until they're in range?" Elena asked. "At current acceleration, 12 minutes, Colonel." Elena activated her personal communicator. "Captain Tanaka, prepare your teams. I want boarding parties ready on the Morrigan, the Celtic, and the Samurai. If we're going to stop this, we need to know what we're fighting." "Understood, Colonel. What are your orders regarding rules of engagement?" Elena looked at the image of Alpha 7 on her screen, a dying world surrounded by its killers. "Captain, whatever did this to an entire planet. The rules of engagement are simple. Stop them, by any means necessary." The next few hours became a blur of combat unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. The alien ships, which the crew had begun calling predators for their hunting formation tactics, fought with a viciousness that defied explanation. Their weapons were based on some form of exotic matter manipulation, creating effects that violated several supposedly fundamental laws of physics. But humanity had advantages of its own. Human ships were faster, more maneuverable, and equipped with shields designed to deflect anything the universe could throw at them. More importantly, humans fought with a cold precision that came from centuries of warfare against their own species. The battle raged across the system. The Thor's hammer engaged 3 Predator vessels near Alpha 7's largest moon, its railguns sending projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The Valkyrie and Prometheus worked in tandem, using their shield generators to protect the more fragile support ships, while their gravitic cannons tore through the organic armor of their enemies. Elena watched from the Nemesis II's bridge as the tactical display showed the ebb and flow of combat. Humanity was winning, but at a cost. The destroyer Beowulf had lost main power and was drifting. The support vessel Atlas had taken significant damage to its port side. "Colonel," Lieutenant Commander Vance reported, "Captain Tanaka's team has succeeded in boarding the largest hostile. They're calling it the Maw of Doom." Elena almost smiled. Even in the face of Xenocide, Kaido could find time for dramatic naming. "Put him through." Kaido's voice came over the communication system, tinged with static, and the sound of combat in the background. "Elena, you need to see this. These things, they're not just killing the people on Alpha 7, they're harvesting them. The ship's full of processing facilities for organic matter. This is industrial-scale extermination." Elena felt sick. "Can you stop them?" "Working on it. My team's found what looks like a central control nexus. It's wrong, Elena. Everything about this ship feels wrong. But we're setting charges now." "Be careful, Kaido." "Always am." The communication cut to static. Elena watched the tactical display as the massive Predator ship, the one Kaido had called the Maw of Doom, began to show internal explosions. Whatever he and his team were doing, it was working. Then the ship exploded. Not a normal explosion, but something that seemed to tear through several dimensions at once. Space-time twisted around the dying vessel, creating gravitational distortions that pulled in debris from across the battle zone. When the light faded, the maw of doom was gone, and with it, Kaido Tanaka and 37 Marines. Elena closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself 1 second of grief for her oldest friend. Then she opened them and got back to work. The destruction of their largest vessel seemed to break something in the Predator formation. The remaining ships began to retreat, not in organized fashion, but in apparent panic. Some fled toward the system's edge, while others tried to reach what appeared to be jump points near the gas giant. "Pursue and destroy," Elena ordered. "Don't let a single one of them escape alive." The hunt took 6 hours. Human ships chased the fleeing predators across the system, running them down like wolves pursuing cattle. When the last alien ship was destroyed in the rings of the outer gas giant, and strange quiet fell over the system, Elena stood on the observation deck of the Nemesis II, looking out at Alpha 7. Even from this distance, she could see the ugly brown scars where cities had once stood, the darkened patches where forests had been harvested down to the soil. Colonel Dr. Hayes approached with a datapad. "Preliminary scans of the planet show massive ecological damage, but there are survivors. Large populations actually clustered around what appear to be underground shelter networks." Elena took the pad, studying the readings. "How many?" "Approximately 47 million out of an estimated original population of 300 million. They've lost over 80% of their people, but they're alive." Elena nodded slowly. "Prep medical teams and engineering units. We're going down there." The surface of Alpha 7 was a testament to the resilience of life and the horror of systematic destruction. Cities lay in ruins, their architecture, a fascinating blend of crystal growths and metallic structures that suggested a civilization that had learned to work with their planet's natural processes rather than against them. The surviving Arfians emerged from their underground shelters hesitantly. They were bipedal, roughly humanoid, but with skin that seemed to shimmer with internal light patterns. Their faces were elongated with large eyes that held an intelligence that was immediately recognizable despite their alien nature. Elder Lyra Sol was among the first to make contact with the human forces. She was ancient by human standards, her luminescent skin patterns dim with age, but her mind was sharp, and her grasp of the mathematical communication protocols that served as the basis for first contact was remarkable. Standing in a medical tent that had been erected in what had once been Alpha 7's capital city, Elena faced the Elder through a hastily constructed translation matrix. The conversation was laborious, conducted through mathematics pictures and slowly building vocabulary bridges. "Your people," Elena managed in the halting pidgin that was developing between the species, "they came from far stars to help us." Elder Lyra Sol's skin patterns flickered in what Elena had learned was agreement. "Death ships come, kill many. We call to sky. You answer." Elena felt the weight of translation difficulties but pressed on. "We call ourselves humans. We come from a place called Earth. The death ships were attacking your people. We stopped them." The Elder's patterns flickered more rapidly. "Death ships. Gone." "Gone," Elena confirmed. "All gone. You safe now." Over the following weeks, as human medical teams worked alongside Arfian healers to treat the wounded, and human engineers helped restore basic infrastructure, communication between the species improved rapidly. The Arfians, it turned out, were natural xenolinguists, and several of the younger ones learned basic English with startling speed. Elena found herself spending hours with Elder Lyra Sol and the other surviving leaders, learning about their culture and their history. The Arfians were an ancient, peaceful people, their entire civilization built around the concept of growth and nurturing. They had achieved interstellar travel centuries ago, but had used it solely for peaceful exploration and trade with other species. The Predators, as the humans had named them, were apparently known throughout this part of the galaxy. They were a nomadic species that moved from system to system, harvesting intelligent life for reasons no one had ever discovered. They had attacked without warning, without provocation, beginning with the outer colonies and working their way inward. They come every generation or two, Lyra Sol explained in increasingly fluent English. Always the same. They take our people, our cities, our life itself. Other stars, peoples know of them, but all afraid. All hide when death ships come. Not us, Elena said firmly. Never us. As the rescue and recovery efforts continued, Elena found herself facing a decision that would shape the future of human-alien relations. The Arfians had nothing left. Their fleet was destroyed, their colonies were empty ruins, and their homeworld was scarred beyond easy repair. But they were alive, and in their large eyes, Elena saw something that reminded her powerfully of humanity itself, the determination to survive and rebuild. The formal alliance ceremony took place in the ruins of what had been Arfa 7's greatest city. Representatives from both species gathered in a plaza where Arfian crystal architecture met human prefabricated emergency structures. Elena, representing humanity, and Elder Lyra Sol, speaking for the surviving Arfians, signed the first interstellar alliance treaty in human history. The treaty was simple but profound. Humanity would establish a permanent military station in the Arfa system, protecting the rebuilding Arfians from any future predator incursions. In return, the Arfians would share their knowledge of xenobiology, ecology, and the other species they had encountered in their peaceful explorations. But more than that, the treaty established something unprecedented, a formal military alliance specifically designed for the protection of peaceful species from predatory ones. A cosmic defense pact that could be extended to other worlds, other species, other civilizations that had no way to defend themselves from the darkness between the stars. Today, Elena said at the ceremony, speaking to humans and Arfians alike, "We say that intelligence has value beyond its ability to destroy. That civilization means protecting those who cannot protect themselves. That the strong have a duty to defend the weak, regardless of how alien they might seem." Elder Lyra Sol's response, translated through increasingly sophisticated communication devices, was simple but profound. "Your species comes from Deathworld, learns to fight death ships. You are truly Deathworlders, but you fight death itself. We are grateful beyond words of any language." The journey home took longer than expected. The Hawking Drive generators had been strained by the combat, and several ships needed extensive repairs. But Elena didn't mind. It gave her time to process what had happened, what it meant for humanity's future among the stars. She spent long hours in her quarters writing reports that she knew would be read by every human government from Earth to the outer colonies. How do you explain in words what it means to watch genocide in real time? How do you convey the weight of making first contact while simultaneously conducting warfare? Dr. Hayes brought her regular updates on the Arfian refugees who had volunteered to come to Earth. 43 individual scientists and cultural specialists who would help establish permanent communications between the species. They were adapting well to human ships, though they seemed to find human music particularly fascinating. Colonel Dr. Hayes said during one of her visits, "I've been analyzing the predator technology we recovered. It's disturbing on multiple levels. Their ships aren't just designed for conquest, they're designed for harvest. Everything about their technology is focused on the efficient extraction and processing of biological matter." Elena nodded grimly. "Have you learned anything about how many there might be? Are there more fleets out there?" "The data suggests they operate in cell-like structures. Independent fleets that rarely communicate with each other. This fleet was probably one of dozens, possibly hundreds, spread across the galaxy." Elena felt a chill. "Then this isn't over." "No, Colonel, I don't think it is." Earth appeared in the view screen like a blue-white jewel, exactly as Elena remembered it. But something had changed during their months in space. She had changed. Humanity had changed. They were no longer alone in the universe, and they had learned that not all of their neighbors were friendly. The reception in the council chambers was unlike anything Elena had experienced. Representatives from every human world stood as she entered, and the applause seemed to echo for eternity. She had expected debriefing questioning, perhaps, even criticism for the risks she had taken. Instead, she found herself being hailed as a hero. President Chen called her to the podium, where she had stood months ago arguing for the mission that had seemed so uncertain then. Now, with the formal alliance treaty in hand and proof of humanity's first successful intervention in interstellar affairs, the mood was entirely different. Colonel Reyes, the president, said, his voice carrying across the chamber, "You left Earth with a fleet and a hope. You return with proof that humanity has found its place among the stars, not as conquerors, but as protectors of the innocent." Elena stepped forward, feeling the weight of 12,000 crew members behind her, of thousands of Arfian lives saved of Captain Tanaka and the 37 Marines who had died to make this moment possible. "Mr. President, members of the Council," she began, "we learned something important in the Arfa system. We learned that the galaxy is full of life, and not all of it is kind. We learned that there are species that view other intelligent life as nothing more than a resource to be harvested. But we also learned that there are peaceful civilizations out there, people who just want to live their lives and raise their children and explore the wonderful universe around them." She paused, looking out at the faces before her human representatives from dozens of worlds. "We have a choice to make. We can hide behind our borders, protect only ourselves, and hope that the predators of space never turn their attention to us. Or we can stand up for those who cannot stand up for themselves. We can be the shield that protects the innocent. We can be the sword that strikes down those who would exterminate entire civilizations for their own purposes." Senator Patel, who had been one of the strongest opponents of the original mission, stood. "Colonel, what you're suggesting would fundamentally change humanity's role in galactic politics. It would make us the police force of local space." "No, Senator," Elena replied. "It would make us human." The debate that followed was vigorous, but brief. In the end, the vote was unanimous. Humanity would expand its defense commitments beyond Sol system. The Orion fleet would be tripled in size. Permanent bases would be established not just in the Arfa system, but at strategic points throughout human space, ready to respond to distress calls from any source. But perhaps more importantly, humanity would begin actively seeking out peaceful species, offering protection and alliance to those who needed it. Not as an empire-building subjects, but as a federation of free peoples, committed to the preservation of life and intelligence throughout the galaxy. Elena found herself promoted to admiral and placed in command of the new Galactic Protection Fleet. It was a responsibility she hadn't sought, but one she understood was necessary. As she stood on the observation deck of the new flagship, the Nemesis III, she thought of Kaido and the sacrifice he had made. She thought of the Arfians rebuilding their world under the protection of human ships. She thought of all the other civilizations out there possibly listening to the dark, hoping for someone to answer, if they ever needed to call for help. "Admiral," Lieutenant Commander Vance called from the bridge. "We're receiving a transmission from the monitoring station at Tau Ceti. It's another mathematical distress signal." Elena smiled, but it was a grim smile filled with purpose. She had found humanity's calling among the stars, and she intended to answer it. "Plot a course for Tau Ceti, maximum burn, and signal the fleet. We're moving out." As the Nemesis III engaged its hawking drive and folded space around itself, Elena stood watching the stars. Somewhere out there, in the vast darkness between the suns, intelligent beings were crying out for help. And humanity, the species that had crawled out of the gravity well of a single world through sheer determination and ingenuity, would answer that call. They called themselves Deathworlders, the children of a planet where everything tried to kill everything else, where survival required constant struggle against impossible odds. But they had learned something that the predators of space had not, that true strength came not from the ability to destroy, but from the willingness to protect. The stars had never seemed more welcoming than they did now, full of possibility and hope. And somewhere in the universe, other worlds were looking up at their own stars, wondering if they were truly alone. Soon, they would have their answer. Humanity had come to the stars not as conquerors or colonizers, but as guardians. And the galaxy would never be the same.